We're back with another exciting segment celebrating Investor Week. You may have heard the movie line turned meme catchphrase used to indirectly tell someone that they're complaining about something that really isn't so bad as it could have been. So today, we're tackling the subject, but did you die? A closer look at investment risk. Of course, losing money is nothing to laugh about. And if you're like me, the risk of losing even $1 can make me nervous. But today, we are taking a look at the risks in investing, how you can manage them, and how you can benefit from all the money-making positives. Leading this discussion with me are David Slatter, RF Vice President of Investment Management, and Keith Davies, CEO at the Bahamas International Securities Exchange. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. So let's get right into the conversation. Keith, tell me, what are the risks associated with investment?
Well, Jackie, the first thing we have to understand is that the goal of investments is to make an informed investment decision. And so when you make that decision, you have to do a number of assessments. You've got to figure out what is it that you want to do. And so risk needs to be a part of that. Waking up, walking into the bathroom and taking a shower is a risk because you can slip and fall. So you make sure that the floor is not wet. You make sure you do things to avoid hurting yourself. So if you're going to invest, you now need to ask questions to say, what is it that I'm going to do with my money? And money sitting in your pocket is a risk because, one, its value is not going to probably go down over time because, and David will talk about that, or it could get stolen. Right. So persons put it in a bank. Well, that's safekeeping. So there's a risk assessment that you do at every stage. And so at the end of the day, we want to get people to that point where they feel comfortable by deploying their money in a certain way such that the risk is low and the return, meaning what you get back, is as high as possible.
It's interesting because I think as Bahamians, we see savings as safe and everything else as having some element of risk, right? And so you're raising the point now about risk being in every single thing that we do, even in investing. So, David, please walk me through when we're coming into investments, let's say the ones offered at an investment bank, because we have different types of investments, right? So the ones offered at an investment bank, walk me through the types of risks associated with those investments.
Well, you mentioned a lot of investors locally often turn to the banks to have a savings account. And they feel that it's safe, and it is fairly safe, but one thing that does not protect them from is the fact that prices keep going up. Over time, things get more expensive. So you want your investing, your savings, to at least keep pace with rising prices. Okay. The term for that is inflation. So the products that we offer provide different types of risk and return. For example, you can buy bonds. These are basically where you lend a company money or you lend the government money and they in turn pay you a return on that. And usually you're looking at around 4.5% to 5%, which at least is covering inflation. So at least that way your dollar today, what it can buy today, it'll be able to buy a year from now, 5 years from now. Or you can get a little more, take on more risk, and you can actually take ownership of a company. Okay. The banks, right? We all know many of the banks trade on BISX. Yeah. Commonwealth Bank, Fidelity Bank, Finco Bank. And, you know, I always tell people, why not own shares of a company that you actually are a customer with? So you're in effect, when you pay the fees to that bank, you're kind of paying yourself. Yes. So own the companies that you actually use.
Is Commonwealth Brewery listed?
Commonwealth Brewery is listed. So if you like, you know, your Rattlers and you like your Heineken and Guinness, well, you know, we know the price of that is going up over time, but at least if you're buying a product that you own shares of or own shares of that company, it's like you're your own customer. So makes sense.
I like the sound of that, David. Yeah. It is very common in the community to say, no, I'm just going to get some apartments, right? Put some apartment on rent. That's how I am investing. What is the risk associated with real estate?
Well, a lot of people fail to appreciate how much it costs to maintain real estate. So it's not as if you pay up front once and that's it. Every year there's maintenance that's required. When it comes to renting, there's also the risk that your tenants don't pay, and it's very difficult to get them out of your property. So that's what we call counterparty risk. That's a big word, right? But in other words, you've made a deal with somebody, they're renting your apartment, and in return for that, they're supposed to pay you every month. So there's a risk that you don't get paid and the risk that you can't get the tenant out. If you're not insured sufficiently, there's a risk that a hurricane comes along and damages the property, destroys the property. So with everything, there's always a trade-off, right? There's always a risk and return trade-off. There's no free lunch when it comes to investing.
I think I want to add a little bit here in terms of people talk about what's a safe investment. What makes an investment safe, I would say, is the amount of work you put in prior to making the investment.
Okay.
So understanding the points that David raised about property. Well, property is safe. I'm going to buy a piece of land. Well, if your land is in an area that's going to be flood prone, your land, we have global warming. If that piece of land on the coast there's going to drop in the ocean real soon, what's the value of that? If you have bought property where there's no utilities and things in the ground, what's going to be the cost to get that to a point of usage? So all of these things are risks that you have to assess prior to making that informed investment. So always take a step back and look at it, what it is that you're thinking about doing prior to making that step.
How do you assess risk based on age?
So the younger you are, the more years of employment you still have, right?
Okay.
So if you're 20 and you retire at 65, you've still got 45 years of employment. That means you've got a 45-year window, investment window. It means you can take more risk. So you have the ability to take risks because you're young and you got a lot of earning years ahead of you. If you're getting close to retirement and you need your retirement funds in 5 years, you got 5 years to work with, you need to take less risk. So the older you get, normally it means you reduce the amount of risk and you look for more conservative investments. So back to the real estate discussion, one of the risks of real estate is what's called liquidity risk, right? Sometimes it's difficult to sell the property and turn it to cash. When it comes to investing, that's one of the things we look at. We want to make sure that you're investing in securities that can be converted to cash quickly and with minimal cost, especially as you get to retirement. As you get older, you want to have those kinds of investments, bonds, preferred shares, or common shares that pay a good dividend, pay you cash every so often, and are easy to sell on BISX, right? You want to make sure you have stocks that are what we call liquid, easy to convert to cash. Cash is king, especially when you're retired.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's continue that discussion on risk. I think it is vitally important that we spend the time to increase financial literacy. What does that mean? Your knowledge about investing, your knowledge about saving, and your knowledge about putting your money to work. Because, let's turn it around. I think it is a risk for you not to do something when you're young because the window, as David explained, gets shorter and shorter. And so if you only have 5 years left to work and you have no savings and a number of things and commitments that you have, you're going to have a problem. And generations in the Bahamas have had this problem where they mortgage their future early on without thinking about what happens at the end of it. And so you've got to think about those things. And like I said, it's a risk not to do something.
Give us some general advice. If you were to speak to, let's say, your teenage daughter coming out of college, about to start her life, what would that advice be in terms of how she should look at risk and how she should be approaching life and investing?
Well, I'll talk real life example. I have one of those. I have a 16-year-old that had a job over the summer, and the first thing I said was, your first paycheck, 10% of that is going into a savings account. I said another 10% is going into a rainy day fund, and I gave him a number of percentages that he had to put aside for, and he was like, well, what? I need to spend this. I want to do something with it. And so the one thing that I tell them, and I tell parents as well, is that saving is a mindset, and it's something that you should adopt and do naturally. It's not something that just happens. It's a proactive step that you need to take. So the first thing I tell that teenager is start the process of saving now and put aside something for something you want in the future. You want a car, you want a house, you want property, Start doing that now, because it becomes easier to do a little bit now than a lot later.
Right. David, what would your advice be?
Well, I've got a daughter who just graduated from university, so definitely your example is spot on for me. You're young, develop these habits that Keith talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Develop the habit of setting a goal, and then on a regular basis, taking steps to attain that goal. So whether your goal is to lose weight or your goal is to get a degree, mm-hmm. well, in investing, your goal is to get to a certain dollar amount over a period of time. It could be for your education, could be for a car, could be for retirement. Once you know what your goal is and you know how much time you have to attain that goal, then you can determine how much risk you're willing and able to take. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of discussions that our clients at the company I work for that we have, right? Mm-hmm. I need to get that level of understanding of what their goals and objectives are, so I can help them put together a plan.
As an individual, I am very risky. All equity, right? I was scared money make no money, right? So I'm trying to get the big win. How do you manage risk? If you were supposed to give advice to someone who thinks that way, one side is not necessarily the best side or the wisest side. What is a wise way to look at investing?
Well, let me start off, and I want David to finish because he can talk specifics. The first thing I say whenever I talk to people about investing in terms of risk reward, I say, what's your tolerance for pain? The younger you are, the more pain you can absorb. Mm-hmm. And so that, again, the time horizon. So once you've determined what that is, then you can begin to take those steps in terms of the type of investments. And so David can talk about the types of things we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's, as you said, you're an aggressive investor, right? You want all equity. As long as you understand what you're getting into, and we talked about investor knowledge, once you have an appreciation of how this security works, how this investment works, and the risks associated with it, then you can weather the downturns, right? Because if you go into equities knowing that there's going to be good years and bad years, mm-hmm. and the share price is going to go down sometimes and go up others, you don't panic when it goes down because you understood this is the way the game, not the game, this is the way investing in equities works. Okay, so make sure you understand. Never invest in something you don't understand.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Ground rule. Ground rule established. Never invest in something you do not understand.
Correct.
For more information, where could people go?
Well, obviously, you can go to RF, the RF Bank and Trust website, rfgroup.com.
Okay.
That's nice and simple. Or you can give me a call at David Slatter at RF, and I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and chat about your future and how we can plan for it.
Keith?
At BISX, well, you go to our website at www.bisxbahamas.com, mm-hmm. and we have information there about the companies that are traded on us, our broker-dealer members, mm-hmm. and how to reach them, and additional information and tips that you can use when thinking about investing.
Thank you for watching. We hope you were able to gain some valuable insights from our guests. Don't forget to post your questions in the comments and join us right here this Friday to get them answered. For the full list of this week's activities, visit rfgroup.com/investwell, where you can also set up an appointment with an RF investment specialist if you're ready to dive into investing. Follow us on social media using the handles @RF Bank Trust and @BISX Exchange to stay up to date on everything that's happening. I'm Jackie Cleare. I trust you'll enjoy the rest of your day.